I'm going into the mountains to make a fly fishing documentary, and the one document that I know I can't leave behind is not the script, it's not the map, not the schedule. It's my shot list and storyboards. So for a documentary, yes, for a documentary. I'm going to go through these step by step because I really need to get them done since I'm leaving in less than a week. I'll show you how I go about creating storyboards for a documentary and also why I find it extremely helpful. And developing the story has been a bit of a crash course. I mean, I have to be done with this film in less than 8 weeks. So, as I've been developing the story, there are a few things that I know I want to do that might be slightly different from the typical documentary. The important part is that I create a set of guidelines to follow in order to craft a compelling story. But it also goes for shot lists and storyboards. So, yeah, there's that. Kind of important. So I created 3 rules for this film that I'm going to try to my best to follow. So when you give yourself constraints, you oftentimes end up forcing some pretty genius creativity. At least that's the hope. So rule number 1, no talking to camera. A couple of movies that I gather a lot of inspiration from are A River Runs Through It and Road to Perdition. One is a fly fishing movie, and the other has the tone and look and feel that I feel is a great compliment to the type of movie I want to make. But they're not documentaries. But a pro tip, sometimes looking outside of the obvious choices for inspiration, whether it is movies or music or food, will help you to find that creative breakthrough that you were looking for. I want this film to feel like a movie, not like a vlog or YouTube video. So if I can find some other creative outlet to help drive the story forward other than an interview or turning to camera to say words, then I say let's do it. Rule 2, treat the beats like movie scenes. While I was crafting some of the basic ideas for this film, I started with general scenes or story beats. So, like planning the trip, camping and scouting, going upstream, reflections, returning home. Very basic in concept, but as I break down the story elements of those scenes, I can begin to expand them into something compelling. One thing I feel is often neglected when planning films like these is setting up clear goals in opposition. So as I write out each scene, I'm looking for a clear goal that can be achieved by the end of the scene and then what the opposition might be. What is that one thing that is preventing me from achieving that goal? When it comes to the shot lists and storyboards, these little insights into your scene will only elevate the types of shots you're trying to get. Rule number 3, allow for exploration. This is, in fact, a documentary, so I really want to avoid scripting everything. What I plan on scripting is how I plan to capture the intro and the scenes or events that I know I'm going to do. There's a huge chunk of the reason of the story that I have no idea what's going to happen or how it's going to play out, like climbing through the canyon, along cliffs and waterways, and maybe running into scary animals. Hopefully, I don't fall in. Hopefully, I catch lots of fish and come home alive. Kidding. But seriously, I have a cruise coming up, so I hope to come home alive. Allowing for the spontaneous to happen, I discovered, only comes from planning the pants off of production. I have very specific moments I want to capture where I can properly expose the shots, get fancy camera moves, etc. But if I focus on the premium footage for those moments, maybe it will allow me a little more freedom to explore when the moment comes. Let's get back to the story outline. So, planning the trip beat, that one. What I'm looking for here is a goal that is faced with opposition. My personal goal, completely outside of the story, is to create more outdoor adventure films, prove the micro epic concept, and move people in a positive way. The scene goal or the character goal for this scene is really more of planning the route, deciding how to get there, or figuring out how to get there. I always find it important to define the opposition and raise the stakes. What is actively fighting against me on this trip? I think the opposition here could be life, or is it the water, the festival deadline, Money, time, responsibility at home, the fish taunting me? These questions are going to help create the stakes as we find out what I have to lose if I don't go on this trip. These are all things standing in the way of me getting to where I want to go. Another great question to ask yourself is in any store kind of story is why now? So that is going to be the big element that I have to answer. Why is now the time to go on this trip? We should really state the theme of the film at the get go. We want people to know what story they're going to be watching from the start. So there are no questions on what the ride is going to be like. I don't have all the story elements figured out yet, but I do know that there are a few things that I need to expand upon. The urge of why this trip matters, the history of my family and camping at this location, explaining the quest, where, when, and what is keeping me from going? I lied. Storyboards and shot lists, this is possibly not quite as important as having a solid story on paper, but it is still very helpful for creating compelling movies that are visually intriguing. So, for my camping setup, I have a few ideas for how I want to film the sequence. When I'm crafting my shot lists and storyboards, I always go with the path of least resistance. For me, I like to start by writing out my shot lists. So for this film, I wanted to take an approach of drawing viewers into the world as opposed to dropping them into it and then revealing what is around them. I see the biggest difference for these two methods is shot order. So if we're dropping viewers into the world and slowly revealing it to them, I'd probably start with a close up and then get wider as the scene progresses and even more is revealed in specific moments, blah, blah, blah. For my approach, I want to start with wide and then move into close ups, like I'm inviting the viewer into the story. With that approach, my shot list might look like this: wide shot of the campsite, medium shot. I'm preparing a campfire, stack logs in the fire pit. Close up as I'm adjusting the firewood and light the campfire. Extreme close up insert as maybe I'm striking the match. My storyboards might look like this: a wide shot establishing the location, tent, table, campfire, vehicle, etc. Trees stand tall, maybe the river is seen in the background. For a medium shot, I would introduce the characters in the setting. The main thing would be to give them an action, some kind of task that they are trying to complete. For this example, thinking we have them starting a fire. So put them low in frame and crossing from one side to the other, maybe left to right, like reading a book or something. The close up for this is probably best served when the action rests. So maybe bending down to light the match or set a log down. And to avoid a jump cut, you want to move the camera at least 45 degrees up or down and left or right. Some people say 30. I'll use the insert to identify something important. I guess the match is important for starting a fire. If I were really outdoorsy, then maybe I would have flint and steel or something cool like that. That is super basic, but it is a foundation. One thing is to play with some of the framing for these shots. The structure of the wide, medium, close up is a common standard, but you can play with that and tell something different. Like, why not? I really want this film to have a visual look that breaks the preconceived ideas of what a documentary could look like. I really want to create unique camera angles that allow for a sense of immersion into the story. That's my plan for now. I still have a lot of work to do, but at least I have a good start, I hope. But before I head into the mountains, I'm going to go over what gear I'm bringing. Then it's off grid for a few days. So if you got value out of this breakdown of my process and want to help fuel this trip, I left a few ways you can support this film, from joining the patron unit or even just chipping in for a coffee to keep me awake on a late night edit or whatever. All of them are in the links are in the description. Either way, subscribe and hit that bell so you'll be ready to hear what happens next.